Hey guys, this is Josh, and you are watching The Amateur Reader, and I want to give you my thoughts and opinions about Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Okay, so I read or listened to Red Rising by Pierce Brown a couple months ago, and I had actually originally made a video on it, but between making that video and when I was actually gonna post it, I had finished the first three books in the series, the first trilogy, and my opinion of it has changed quite a bit since finishing that third book. So once again, I listened to this book, narrated by Tim Gerard Reynolds, who is a phenomenal voice actor. I'll be honest, at first I was a little put off because it's supposed to be kind of like a Roman inspired themed setting. And this is an Irish voice actor, which I think the first like couple chapters was just it felt kind of weird, but he does it very well. He does the voices very well. The protagonist has to kind of change his tone and how he speaks depending on who he's talking to, and he does that very well while you still understanding who the voice is. So A plus to Tim Gerard Reynolds for the narration of this book. My wife has my infant over there, so if you hear some screaming, that's just him not wanting to go to sleep. But so this novel is a fantasy novel, sci-fi, science fiction fantasy about, it's a revenge story with a major plot of overthrowing a government. Some strong themes of this is brotherhood, trust and betrayal, identity and sacrifice. The pacing is extremely fast. Probably not as fast as book two, but it's there's a lot of things happening, not a lot of moments of slowness, which some people kind of don't like. I thought it was okay for what the book was. You're kind of given the impression that this book is a black and white story from the first act of just your protagonist Darrow is he's kind of given his call to action and he doesn't really want to take it. But when events happen and he's forced into this opportunity to overthrow the government, he goes at it with a lot of vigor. And like I said, we're given this impression that it's him and the society that he grew up on against the upper echelon of society. And I guess I should state that if nobody already knows, in this world there is different what would you call it? I guess castes to society. It's very color ranking. So at the bottom you have the Reds, who Darrow is a part of, and then at the top of society are the Golds, which they're like the most beautiful, perfect, powerful beings that are out there. They run the planet. They control the armies. They do everything. And in between that, there are many different colors. There's blacks, there are blues, grays, whites, pinks, and I think like coppers, and there's a bunch. And they all kind of have their different parts in society. Like I think blues are supposed to be very smart and technical, and like they are like mechanics and that type of stuff. Pinks are used as like, I think, in brothels and kind of entertainment for the Golds or anybody above them. But the main point is Reds are at the bottom and Golds are at the top. And it's a story about the Reds discovering this whole world because they're kind of in a in the dark under Mars' surface, mining helium for what they're told is to terraform Mars to make it livable. But they're kept in the dark about all this, and it's only after Darrow is forced into this situation where he's shown like the world is much, much more. The world is already terraformed. People are already living on the surface, that he is kind of like, wow, like we need to break this down. Like we need to fix this. And the only way to do that is to take out the Golds. And so that's kind of what we're thrown at in the first act. And then I'm trying not to, my initial thought was not to do too many spoilers, but I feel like that was kind of spoiler, but that was only the first act. I'll kind of give some strengths and weaknesses of this story before I go into a little more spoilers. Some of the strengths, in my opinion, are the side characters are very fun, very interesting. They're very good. They have their own motivations and desires. The story is extremely fast-paced, which makes for an easy read or listen to. I didn't feel like I needed to take too many breaks with it. The world building is pretty unique. It's set on Mars, and just how the society is, I feel like it's decently thought out with how everything is run and operated. The emotional reactions I've had to this book and subsequent books are visceral. They're quite extreme. I remember there's some moments where I was just like jaw dropped, like just couldn't believe what I listened to. And lastly, I think another really good strength is the protagonist is extremely compelling. He goes through some pretty traumatic moments, and he's not perfect. We see him go through these experiences, feelings, and how he kind of pushes through and kind of does what he needs to do for society. With that being said, there are some weaknesses which took down the points of the book for me quite a bit. I think so. There's 4 acts, and I guess this is starting to get into more spoiler section. There's 4 acts of the book. The first one is his and Eo's, who is his wife. It's his and hers like kind of execution day. That's where it kind of ends. It's about like them just kind of showing what society is like for the Reds, how brutal and how tough it is for everybody down there. Everybody's living on rations, and their living conditions are just horrible. They're essentially slaves. And it's following and talking about all these different things about their society. And Act 1 ends with Eo and Darrow's death. Following Act 2, we discover that while Eo did die, Darrow was given this sedative that kind of made it look like he died, but he was whisked away, kind of unburied by these group of people called the Son of Ares, who have a plan to overthrow the hierarchy. And it's a big training arc of him modifying his body and changing his thought patterns and speech patterns to make it seem like he is a Gold. And when I said changing his body, literally changing his body. There is, I forget what the title of one of the people in the story is, but there's somebody, it's like he's an extreme version of a plastic surgeon. Like he altered this guy's bones and skin and just like appearance and everything, so he looked like this guy of the upper echelon of society. Just this perfect human being, very strong, very powerful. And so that's who Darrow became, was this extremely strong and powerful individual. Um, and it's following that changing of body and training and learning what it's like to be a gold, so that he can kind of infiltrate the society and hopefully tear it down from within. And he has to go to this academy. It's kind of dubbed the murder school, where these kids of kind of like elite families go to train and become the peerless scar, which is just like the 1% of the 1% of society. And they're the ones that rule the armies and rule the planets and everything that there is to it, the moons, you name it. They're kind of the real deal about being elite humans, if you can even call them humans at that point. But yeah, it's when he goes to this academy, that's when Act 3 starts. And that's kind of where I'm trying to make this point, is Act 3 was my least favorite act, because it was kind of hard to visualize. There was a lot of fantastic moments, a lot of very gruesome moments in this. That's kind of where the meat and potatoes of the whole story takes place. But it felt like kind of just like what we were expecting from the whole story. It was like, didn't have the same themes of this. I don't know. It was kind of weird. It was a battle royale. It was last one standing kind of wins the competition. Whether you're incapacitated and survived but taken out of the challenge, or you kill the other competitors, and so we're following him through that. There's a lot of alliances, a lot of betrayal. I'm not a huge fan of betrayal. I understand its place in stories, and I think it can be done well. But it was like every other chapter was some big betrayal, and it was really hard to tell what people's true motives were, which always kind of made me question people's relationships. And I like a good, strong relationship. And when I question the relationships amongst the characters, it kind of, I feel like it took away from that. Lastly, I think, or not lastly, but another weakness would be that there's a lot of YA tropes in this, kind of like a lot of vibes of like the Hunger Games, where it's, taking down society and all these different things, where it's like, it felt like kind of that YA dystopian post-apocalyptic story. But what was weird about it is it had a lot of really adult themes. Like, you experience a lot of extreme violence, like very gruesome murder, torture, punishment, and there's some sexual assault, like varying degrees of it, up to rape. And so I felt like that was a little jarring at times. Just kind of, you would have very kind of like a couple calm moments, and then just like nutso scenes. And you can take that how you want. I'm sure some people enjoy kind of like that really grittiness, but it felt like a lot. It wasn't the worst thing. And lastly, this is a silly one, but there was a lot of like cringy moments or cringy dialogue, kind of pretty predictable. I felt like Io and Darrow's relationship was a little cringy. I mean, they're like 16 years old, and they're having this like, feel like they're a couple that has been for like 30 years, and they've only been married for like, I don't know, 6 months or a year, however long it was. So, which when I was looking back, I know in societies where you're extremely oppressed, you do grow bonds with people and you do form meaningful relationships at a very young age. But it felt a little cringy, a little sappy, but that was such a short period of the book that wasn't too bad. Some of the other cringy moments were just some of the dialogue amongst other people. It was very much like kind of like a soundboard reaction. So that's like a small weakness, but yeah. Overall, I think the book was great. It wasn't my favorite. It was a solid entry into the series. I think I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. So good. Yeah, I know there was some other things I wanted to mention, but yeah, I think that's all I want to say. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll have the part 2 out in a little bit, but take care. Bye.